Welcome to the Great Girlfriends podcast, where we discuss life, love, laughter, and everything in between. I'm your host, Sybil Amuti, and I can't wait for you to hear all of the Great Girlfriend magic on today's show. So without further ado, grab something great to drink, grab your pen and your paper, and get ready for this week's episode. Enjoy! Happy Wednesday, Great Girlfriends. I hope that you are having the absolute best day of your life. And if you're not, make the adjustments to make it the absolute best day that you can make it. I just came off of 6 weeks of my mom being in town, and it was so cool. My mom is fully retired, Rachel. My mother is 80 years young, and I share her age so liberally because if you see her and you meet her, you're like, 80? She is like the most energetic, bright, happy, yellow 80-year-old that you'll ever meet. And she moves around like a 65-year-old. So there's that part. But what's so cool is that I just came off of 6 weeks of her being here in LA with us, and we had a good time. We learned so much about each other that on this trip, by the time we left, between taking my mom to The Price is Right, taking my mom to, let's see, what other shows did we do? The Price is Right, we did The Talk, we did The Voice at the end of her trip. We went to Temecula, we were up and down, all of them throughout LA. We had so many different experiences. She was at the track meets with the kids. She did all the things. She hung out with Willie, the dog. By the time she left, I was like, I think I need to get you a California driver's license. I feel like you're a full resident now. Like, I feel like you're one of us. So it was so fun to have that time with her. And one of the things that I learned with my mom being here, when I'm at home every day, I'm working. I'm literally on the laptop. I'm doing my thing. I got my planner out. I got the objectives for the day. I got a schedule. And, I'm out here trying to knock it out. And my mom is retired a fully functioning retiree, probably for, say, 15 years now. So she kind of floats through the day, right? So she's floating while I'm like in full function mode. And my mother taught me to create enjoyable moments during the day, which I thought was so special because literally we would go to every TJ Maxx, every Ross, every Nordstrom Rack, every store in the city for maybe 3 hours a day, come back, and the world just felt bigger, better, brighter. Yes, I felt exhausted. I would get my steps in at the same time, and my mother would buy, all the things under the sun that she wanted to try on and see if she liked and bring back or whatever be the case. But taking those breaks and setting aside some good quality time with her during the day made a world of difference for me. And it helped me to appreciate my 24 hours a bit more because I didn't think I had the time to do that during the day. What I have realized is that if I don't take the time to do that, I won't have the time to do it later. Amen. Amen. So I'm just saying that to say, create those enjoyable moments during the day. Find something to celebrate every single day. Every single day, literally, I am either texting a great girlfriend, texting my mother, a brother, a cousin, someone, and saying, hey, you're doing a great job. I don't even know what you're doing today. You could be clipping your toenails, but let me tell you, no one's doing it better than you today. You're doing a great job today, and you need to stop and celebrate yourself. And every time I do that, I get it back to me like, girl, how are you celebrating yourself? And, how are you going to make sure you reward yourself with compliments and just some form of flattery every single day? So I do. I take my mirror moments after my shower and I look at myself and I'm like, this body has done some amazing things. This body has weathered so many storms. This body has celebrated in so many high places. This body has birthed children. This body has been married for 18 plus years. This body has just really been a marvelous work of art. You might not say that to yourself in the mirror in the morning after your shower, but I do. I take that time and I kind of luxuriate in some flattery like, girl, this body is really actually amazing. Because guess what? All throughout the day, I have these other thoughts about my body. And then I have to remind myself, like, wait a minute, that is that amazing body that has done the most incredible things you didn't think were possible. That brain of yours is really beautiful and fabulous. And you are bomb, girl. So, take the time during your day to create some celebratory moments to make sure that you are saying, I love you. You're saying, girl, you the bomb. Doesn't matter if anyone else ever says it. You better know it and show it every single day. And don't let anything get in the way between you and your self-love. Like anything, absolutely anything. So if you are connected with me on Instagram, then you saw in my stories, this is just me giving y'all the digest of things that's been going on that I haven't shared that I need to catch you up on. You saw my stories where I talked about coming back from the cruise and being plump, right? So I got back from the cruise, and let me tell you, while I was on the cruise, and I've been talking about this cruise a lot because the cruise showed me so many things, but while I was on the cruise, we were getting in like 15,000 steps a day. We're walking everywhere. I mean, we're not eating 3 meals. We're probably eating like 2.5 meals. It wasn't the meals we were eating. It was the time of day that we were eating. I'm sorry. It wasn't the number of meals we were eating. It was the time of day that we were eating and what was on the plate. So those things did not pair well with my 11, 12, 13, 14, 15,000 steps a day. So by the time I got home from the cruise after eating maybe 2.5 meals at 7 o'clock p.m. and 1 a.m., cookies on one plate and maybe like a cheesecake on the other, I had gained probably 2.5, 3 pounds. So when I stepped on my scale, I felt like my scale looked back to me, and my scale, maybe your scale's not petty, mine is. My scale looked back at me like, girl, what are you doing here? Why did you even bother stepping on me when I got to tell you the truth about what you've been doing, right? So I stepped on the scale. The scale said numbers that I didn't want to see, that I haven't seen, numbers I haven't seen in years, great girlfriends. I haven't seen these numbers since I gave birth to my first child, Sam. Okay, so that's how long ago, that's 15 years ago that I've seen the numbers that I saw on my scale when I stepped on it after this cruise. And the crazy thing about me is I had the audacity to be shocked. Why am I shocked? Sybil, why would you be shocked at what the scale is telling you after you did all the unscalable things on the cruise and all the months prior to? After you spent all this time having cookies and indulging in foods that you shouldn't have at hours that you shouldn't eat them. So I blamed it on the scale, and I said, let me step off and let me just step back on. Let me reset the scale, because that's normally that. Maybe these are my husband's numbers. Let me reset it. Let me get back on. So I got off the scale, shook it up. I reset it, got back on, and it's like she side-eyed me. First, she didn't give me a number. I stepped on it again, and she gave me the number back. Like I said what I said, and I was like, oh my God, I'm plump. I'm plump. I don't know how I got here. And I was having this big moment of like, what in the world are you doing? So for me, when I take these moments of self-awareness, it's self-love for me. I recognize like, hey, these are not numbers you want to see, but you got yourself here. No one drove you to Chick-fil-A. Let me just be honest about some of my sins. No one drove you to Chick-fil-A and told you to order what you ordered at the hour that you ordered it. No one told you to choose that homemade ice cream that Dylan makes that you love when you chose it, the time that you chose it, and how many times you chose it. No one told you to have the soda that you've been drinking that you shouldn't drink, that you keep choosing to drink, and so on and so on, right? No one told you to do all these things. So when I check myself, it's self-love. So I went on social media and I said, I'm thick, y'all. I am plump, I'm thick, and I need to get honest about where I am so that I can make new choices. And I was proud of myself because I am a fairly vulnerable and honest person. It doesn't matter if I know you well. If it's on my heart, if it's in my mind, I'm going to share it because I realize that I risk more holding it in. So if I hold in these thoughts about being plump and feeling like heavy, then I'll start to feel insecure. But if I share it and if I recognize that this awareness is going to help me make new choices, I'll do better. So in my sharing, I thought it was interesting that I shared I was having thick thoughts. I shared how I owe my skinny self an apology because I thought she was thick when she wasn't. Shame on me. And that I need to apologize to my former skinny self. So former skinny self, I want to do this publicly. I want to apologize to you because, girl, you were not fat. You were not plump. You were none of the things that I thought you were. And now that I'm in a thicker space, I know that. I didn't know that when I was thinner, y'all. Just letting you know. So all that judgment, I set that aside. And then I just talked about the fact that just because I fit in jeans doesn't mean they fit me well, right? Like I was sharing some of my revelation. I was sharing, the pettiness of my scale and how I feel like my scale says things to me even when I'm not even looking at her. So I was just having some thick thoughts. And so many people, reached out to say, oh, girl, don't be hard on yourself. Oh, be kind to yourself. Be tender to yourself. Like, don't say those mean things about yourself. And, I had to respond because I felt like, wow, okay, I appreciate the love and consideration, but I also have to give some people, including great girlfriends, the gift of knowing that self-awareness is self-love. And that sometimes you're going to have tough moments where you're going to have difficult conversations with yourself. And it is A-OK as long as it's rooted in love. And so my ability to see things about myself, to question and to challenge things about myself publicly is not me coming down on myself. It's actually me loving myself liberally and offering people the ability to do the same for themselves, right? That's me sort of giving the blueprint to say, hey, being tough when you need it, setting discipline, establishing discipline and setting boundaries when you need it for yourself is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing if you recognize something about yourself that you need to adjust. And for me and my body, the weight that I'm carrying now is not healthy for my bones because I am traditionally a thinner, much thinner person. However, over the course of, I would say, the last 6 months of me sitting in the middle of complex decisions, having like really some micro and macro stressors that have been in the very, very back of my mind, and thinking over, kind of obsessing over some thoughts of what I should do, should I not do, X, Y, and Z, led me to where I was. And I didn't even know that I was an emotional eater until I started to retrace my steps. So I'm just giving that honesty out because there's someone listening who needs to get honest. And I know I'm not the only one. I'm only making space for you to say, hey, maybe it's me. And if it's not you and you got a hack from me, right, send it. I welcome it. But I just want to make clear that self-awareness is self-love in my book. And in your book, you have to set the standards for how your self-awareness influences or supports your self-love, right? But I never want to leave off the table the idea that I can laugh, that I can, poke at myself because that's the way I love me, and that I can do that publicly and be okay with it. Like I truly can. I promise you, I lose no sleep at night when I'm honest with myself. I really don't. I lose more sleep when I am eating, the wrong foods and obsessing over things that I shouldn't be obsessed over, and, trying to please other people. So I'm not doing any of that. So I just want to give that to you as a gift. And I also wanted to just give it to myself as another gift to say, thank you so much for supporting me in my book, Self-Awareness is Self-Love. And I want to give that to you as something you could keep in your kit. So I'm just sharing that. And then there's a few other things that I wanted to just, chat about today because my birthday was on April 15th. And I had a beautiful birthday. Thank you so much for every single call, text, gift, flowers, just everything that you did to support. Thank you to every member in the Facebook group under the Great Girlfriends. If you're not a member, you should join, who posted a message, posted a picture, or said something warm and beautiful. I literally read all the messages, all of them. I read all of them. And I'm like, oh, ooh, like I feel all the feels when I get those messages. So I appreciate every single one of them. And I don't know if you're like me, but on Facebook, on your birthday, the timeline is like full, right? And so, excuse me, I go through every single message and I read them all. And sometimes, some years past, I would take the time to thank every person one by one. It could be 200 something messages. I don't know. I would do it. This year I didn't do it, but I did put out a general thank you. And I just wanted to say it here that I truly appreciate the love. I truly, truly, truly appreciate, even on LinkedIn and people that you're professionally connected with. I appreciate the love. And I hope that I have given you that same amount of love on your birthday because it matters. Now, the day after my birthday, right? It's my birthday week. I am like high as a kite because it's my birthday week. My birthday runs as long as I run it. And that's just the way I do it. I love it that way. My birthday week, right? So I'm in the car with my mom and I had set up some meetings that week, very light meetings, nothing heavy because it's my birthday week and I'm flexing and I'm doing what I want to do. But I'm sharing this for a reason. This birthday felt particularly different. It was a beautiful day. I spent it at the ocean by myself. And I never have solo birthdays. I typically, on my birthday, leave the day to the people who love me to surprise me with something that they feel I should have on my birthday, right? And I'm always grateful for whatever that experience might be. It could be something very simple, it could be something extravagant. It doesn't matter. I'm just always open to that. But this particular birthday, I decided to take myself to the ocean. And so I went to the ocean for the day, sat back, watched the waves, fell asleep for a second, woke up, fell asleep again, watched the waves, stuck my feet in the sand, took pictures, took maybe a 4-mile walk, came back, ate my snacks, chilled out, did the thing. I just did I did what I felt I was being led to do. And on that day at the ocean, I look at the waves, and if you have listened to this podcast over the years, or if you have known me at all, you know how much I love the ocean, love watching the waves, love the experience of seeing the waves hit the shoreline and then go back. I watched it repeatedly. It's almost like I could count it. And I just have this communion with God when I'm at the ocean. And so I was watching the waves, and, I sat back and I was like, new birthday. All right, God, I release anything that is not of you for this year. I release it today. I set it off, take it out to that ocean, put it away. I don't want anything else that is not of you, because sometimes I hold on to things too long. I know myself. I know that I can hold on longer. And sometimes I'm loyal when I shouldn't be. Sometimes I, don't like to let things or people go. I kind of hoard relationships because I'm like, oh, it's not that bad, when it probably should have been, discarded. That's who I am. Like I'm sort of a lifer. And so, I sat at the ocean and I was like, God, I give you the release to get rid of people, places, things, whatever it is. Because where I don't have courage, I'm calling on heaven to fill me with the right level of courage, right? So I did that at the ocean, and I was just skippity doo dah, feeling good about myself, said it, and left it there. The next day, I had a call that was shocking to me because I had established the call. And the reason why I set the call was because I wanted to have a conversation about new things that were happening concerning the podcast, and I wanted to get updates and I wanted to talk about it. Well, on this call, I was actually released from my network. Now, I'm sharing this information not to poo-poo on the network at all, because they're wonderful people, but to share that was not the plan. That was not Sybil's plan for the call. Sybil's plan for the call was to go, let's talk about how we're going to progress things around this podcast, or things that need to shift or be adjusted based on my experience the prior year, right? And I will say this. When I set up the call, I was not necessarily excited about having the call, but I was looking forward to having an honest conversation about what I felt needed to be adjusted in my experience going forward if I was going to continue the relationship. Well, it was interesting because think about what I said at the ocean the day before, and then think about who I am as a person and how I will continue through a difficult relationship for the sake of relationships sometimes. And in this case, it was almost like the boyfriend who you've been with for a few years, who, you got a trip scheduled to go to Italy. And you're like, after this Italy trip, I'm going to break up with the boyfriend. That's what I'm going to do, because I know that this relationship is not what it needs to be. However, I want to go to Italy, right? So that's happened. I know I'm not the only person who's ever had to make those choices, but that was the sort of relationship where I was like, I need to have this conversation, and off this conversation, I'll then know if I need to make a difficult decision or if I need to stick around and see what this new chapter was about. Well, that didn't happen the way I had planned. I think about what I said at the ocean, and I think about how on the call, the network released a podcast from their catalog based off of the very thing that I had considered a grievance from the year before, which was interesting, right? Saying that to say, when I had the grievance the year before, that was the beginning of a large warning sign for me that I should have made a choice that would have been in the best interests of my new chapter. However, sometimes we get comfortable. Sometimes we get safe. Sometimes we put hard decisions on the back burner because we want to make sure that we are supporting other people, or we haven't figured out what our next thing will be, right? And then the invisible feels more overwhelming and more intimidating than the visible. Well, the greatest gift that I got from that call was the release that probably would have taken maybe 6 months or more to do. But the release that said to me, it was time for something new. It's time for a new chapter. It's time for a new experience, possibly a new network. Who knows? The benefit that I have as a podcaster is that I own my show. I own the name, I own the brand, I own all the things. So I'm able to walk away and still have my show in any space that I want to have it in, and it's mine. And I think that any podcaster out there, if you're ever in that space, make sure you own your assets. But I will also say, I saw this post on social media and it hit me in my spirit because I know the season that I'm in is one where it's like new, new, new. Everything new is jumping at me. And I have to, instead of feeling grief or remorse about things that I have to leave behind, get excited. And so this guy, Monty Woodard, said, you can literally feel when it's time to move into your life's next chapter. And so I thought, I'm like, that's me. That's exactly who I am. When I said it on the call and I said it on social media, I said it immediately on social media. I was like, oh, my network just dropped me and people were sad. I was like, no, 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 no. There's no sadness here. There's actually excitement. It was actually something that needed to happen. Probably should have happened when I realized that the prioritization was different and that I wasn't going to get what I needed out of a relationship. It probably should have happened then versus me having to wait until the day after my birthday to have this news come to me. So I can't be sad about something that is actually a gift to my new chapter. And that's for someone who might be thinking, well, this thing just happened, it's setting me back. It's actually propelling you forward, literally setting the stage for you to take ownership of your life, your choices, your new chapter. So when I saw that, he said, you literally can feel when it's time to move into your life's next chapter. I thought about it and I said, whose life is it anyway? Is it mine to live, or am I using my days to respond to the people in my life and their choices? Like, am I giving them my life because I've allowed them to make choices and I'm spending all my days responding and hoping and wishing and praying? Or am I being proactive about my new chapter? And I can say honestly that the only proactive thing that I was doing was at the ocean when I said, God, I release you, which was a big thing. But I knew that I still had to make some more tactical choices that support what's in the best interest of my life, my brand, my company, my legacy, my value, all of those things. And I want to encourage anyone else who is like, geez, maybe you just got, released from a job, or maybe you just had a breakup, or maybe you just had to let go of something or someone, or maybe you're in a position where you haven't figured it out. In fact, we had a person in the Facebook group put up a post to say, for those of you who've been divorced, how do you know when it's time? Or maybe you're at the place at that crossroad where you're looking at your marriage like, is this my marriage, or is it time to do that? I just want to encourage you to be proactive around your life, the things that matter to you, the businesses that matter to you, the properties that matter to you. Be intentional about making those choices. When you feel those nudges in your spirit, and those nudges oftentimes come on the backside of rejection. It comes on the backside of people not meeting your standards. It comes on the backside of you being humiliated or feeling let down many, many times over. Those nudges are there to propel you and to give you the courage to face those new choices, like to literally face them and face them with ease. And, I want a proactive life. I want a life where I make the first move and I leave footsteps in the sand. Like, I want it to be that I'm not walking in other people's footsteps all the time. Sometimes we will be, but that I'm leaving footsteps in the sand because I was willing to make the choices and other people can support and be carried by those choices. So, for me, I had to tell myself a few things, and then I had to tell myself, Sybil, don't be afraid to leave. Be afraid of what happens if you stay. If you stay complacent, if you stay uncomfortable, if you stay under prioritized, if you feel undervalued, if you feel misrepresented in relationships or in a friendship or at a company or network or whatever be the space, be afraid of what happens if you stay in a point of complacency. If you stay in a place where people see you this big, but you're a giant, like, be afraid to stay there. Be afraid to be a large fish in a small pond. I think about the orca whales over at SeaWorld. Be afraid to be a whale that's living in a tank. You're a giant. You belong in a bigger space. There's bigger opportunities in store for you. But be afraid of people who miss the vision. Be afraid to stay, with people who miss the vision. If people can't see, support, and be willing to help grow alongside who you are and what's on the inside of you and willing to make that investment, don't be afraid to leave those relationships. Be afraid to stay. Be afraid to stay there. I want to say that over again. I'm afraid of what happens if I stay in spaces where people allow me to be small. I'm afraid to stay in places where people don't challenge me. I'm afraid to stay in places where people don't love me or don't give me correction. Like, I'm afraid of that. I'm more afraid of that than I am being afraid to leave into an open world where God has put so much abundance and there's so many people and it's just so much bigger than the small spaces where you and I have been contained. So saying that to say, that's what I had to tell me. And I had to remember that my value and your value goes wherever you go. Wherever you go, no matter what you do, you don't leave your value behind. Maybe people have gotten new ideas, have been inspired by you. Maybe they're able to say, look at the impact that this person has made while they're here. But wherever you go, you're investing yourself. And all that value that sits on the inside of you, there's so many unearthed ideas. There's so much inspiration. There's so much value. There's so much equity. There's so much so much your spirit, your being, all of that goes with you. And all that goes with me. So I had to say to myself, Sybil, your value goes wherever you go. So when you're gone, people always miss you. They always go, dang, I miss you. How have you been? What's new? Catch me up. Okay, well, catch me up in my new chapter. You can check out my new chapter because that's where you're going to find out everything that's going on with me. But wherever you go, great girlfriend, your value goes with you. So you never have to worry about whether or not you're enough for your new chapter. You never have to question whether or not you have the adequacy to walk in the steps and the shoes that you have to fill in your new chapter. You are fully equipped to learn all the lessons that you need to learn and to bring the value to the table that comes alongside you, like that part. And I had to tell myself that. I took up a couple of things I had to tell myself. I had to also tell myself that you're brave when you say yes to the invisible and you trust your faith. Literally, braver when you're looking into the invisible, the impossibility, what feels like something that is intangible. When you trust your faith to go there, that's when you're brave, right? That's when you're brave. And I'd rather have attached myself to bravery than complacency. I'd rather fight for what I know I'm worth than fight for something that felt safe. And that's for anyone who has to make the choice. Do I want to fight for safety, for security, or do I want to fight for what I know I'm worth and be willing to put my neck on the line for what I'm worth, right? And that is that space of there's possibility that has been unearthed, the invisible space. I'm willing to go there. Even when you think about, our family's big choice to move to LA in 2021 made no sense to people who didn't understand my faith or my husband's faith. Made no sense to people who felt like you're doing so great in New Jersey and New York and you're secure and you're safe, and made no sense to those people. It made no sense to them. I literally could feel when my life was moving into a new chapter. My husband felt it. It was time. God was pushing us, and we had to make the difficult choice. And it doesn't make everyone else comfortable. I was too afraid to stay behind and not trust God. So I had to say to myself, we can do this. We can do this. We can do this new thing. This new chapter allows for new possibility, right? And then the last thing that I had to tell myself, or I'm telling myself every single day that I walk in this new chapter, is that every chapter has an end. So don't get in the way of the ending. Don't get in the way of the ending. Any good book that has chapters, every single chapter has an end. It has to have an end so you can have a new chapter. So you can introduce new characters. So you can introduce new themes, new locations, new activities, new inspiration. It has to have an ending. And if we get in the way of the ending, we prolong a chapter, it no longer has its value or interest. Literally, things start to die off. And again, when I was faced with the network's decision, I realized that I had gotten in the way of an ending that I saw months before, but I hadn't taken the time to make the choice to do that. So again, I'm encouraging all of you to learn from my choices. Now, is the show ending? Absolutely not. No, 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 no. Because there was a show before there was a network. There will always be a show until God says it's time for the show to end. So that I want to make very clear. Show is not ending. That is not what's happening. What's happening is the reclamation of full ownership of the show experience. That's what's happening. And it opened the door actually for new conversations, because when I shared in my self-awareness and in my honesty on Instagram about, hey, I'm in this new chapter, guess what? Network released me today, so I'm facing some new choices. My DMs got flooded, literally flooded, with people who were like, well, if you do this, let me know, because I might be interested in partnering with you on this. Or if you want to create a campaign to build this out, let me know, because I have ideas. I got one great girlfriend who's been a listener since day one of this podcast. Literally day one, she was a listener and has been listening for all of these years, to send me a full DM, when I tell you, a comprehensive strategy on how to build out something else in this new chapter, a full comprehensive strategy. It blew my mind how quickly she sent it, because her brain was just wired, because she has seen the show, the brand, she understands the conferences, experiences, all the things. So she gets it. And she was like, this is not the end of the whole thing, but this is actually a segue into something else. And so when I saw that, I was so inspired. She never would have sent that had I not been faced with this new day and had to face that new decision, and also been honest enough to be vulnerable and say, hey, this is what happened with me today. She never would have sent it. She wouldn't have known that I needed her support. So every time you walk into a new chapter, just know that there are new characters waiting to jump into the storyline. They're waiting to support you. They're waiting to advocate. They're waiting to pray. They're waiting to invest. They're waiting to just cheer you forward. That is what it's about. That's what this podcast has been about. And that's what every new chapter for my life will be, and for your life. So I wanted to share that, because I always want to get honest with y'all. I never want to leave y'all behind on what the whats are. And I don't want you to hear it from someone else and misinterpret what the experience is. Literally, I get hit with things just like the next person. And sometimes it feels like, all is well. All is not always well that looks well, right? Sometimes there's things going on beneath the surface that I'm detangling the wires on, that I'm figuring out. And I want to give it to you once I got the lesson on it. And so the lesson on this for me was literally those things that I laid out for you about the courageousness that it takes for you to make that new step, to honor the new chapter, but be afraid to stay. Be afraid to stay where you know you don't belong anymore. Like, let that be the thing. And I am very discerning and keen on how people treat other people. So I'm always paying attention, whether or not I say it or not, to how people treat other people. And I can understand and appreciate that if they treat one person this way, it's not going to be long before you get treated the same way. And it's also your same pattern. So you want to be aware so that you can understand that. And I am saying this broadly based, girlfriends. It can be any relationship. It could be a new chapter at a job. It could be a new chapter in a new city. It could be changing hairstylists, because that's a relationship too. It could be a new dentist. It could be moving and buying a new home, or, a new church home, or a new community group, or whatever it is. And, different choices that you have to make. I want you to understand how, though they can be difficult, they are essential, because again, every chapter has an ending, and you do not want to get in the way of what is in store in your new chapter. So the more you prolong that choice, the more complicated things become, the more insecure you become in a space where you thought you were secure. Right. And so I just want to give that to you in love, because I always want to make sure you have access to the ability to make choices as you need. So that's it for today. I just wanted to share that with you, and thank you for listening. And thank you also for those of you that sent in emails about the last episode on 5 Keys to Finding Peace. I saw all of the emails, and I will respond to them in our Facebook group. And I'll also probably respond to them on an Instagram Live. But thank you so much for that. Any episode ideas you have, we want to hear. Any guests that you think should be on the show, would love to have them. I will still be recording live in LA in a studio. And I will also be doing virtual recordings. So there's always that. But just know that I love and appreciate you, and thank you for always supporting me, supporting the Great Girlfriend Show, the community, the brand, and so forth. I'm sending you blessings today. Peace. All right, great girlfriends, did you enjoy this week's episode of the podcast? If so, would you please give us your amazing review on iTunes? Every single review helps another great girlfriend get plugged into the podcast and the community. Speaking of community, make sure you join our Facebook group at The Great Girlfriends, follow us on Instagram at The Great Girlfriends, and on Twitter at @the_great GFS. I'm Sibylla Muti, and I'm out.